everyone, welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast with me and David, and today we're going to be covering 1960s Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins. So David, what do you think of Psycho, just right out of the gate?
Psycho, to me, is one of the most important films ever made, especially for the horror genre. For me, this is the godfather of horror movies. This is the first modern horror movie. I think that every horror movie that's come out since owes it that to Psycho.
Psycho did a lot of firsts for us, besides being the first movie to ever show a toilet flushing, but like to do what they did in the middle of the movie by switching us with the lead, who we always thought the lead of the movie was going to be, and then just turning it on its head, killing them off. And we're talking about Janet Leigh here with, again, one of the most famous scenes in horror history, the shower scene, showing just a lot of stuff in 1960, very ahead of its time, and having Alfred Hitchcock be the director, really, I mean, can you get a better director than Alfred Hitchcock in 1960?
I don't think so. And the weird thing about it is that Hitchcock, in a lot of ways, he was making larger movies than Psycho by the late 50s. Yes. This was a small movie for him. This was almost like him taking a step back. However, he was pushing an awful lot of boundaries at Psycho. He was pushing the censors. He was pushing the form forward, especially for horror movies. I mean, I would say up to this point that there was not a movie that been made like Psycho up until 1960.
No, and it's weird. This came out the same year as Peeping Tom, which is also a movie that's kind of a little bit of ahead of its time, but just nothing like Psycho, like seeing blood go down the drain. And I don't know, you've told me this before, and I'm able to do the same thing as you, where I can kind of put myself in like what people were trying to think like in 1960, and I try and think of like what it was like going to the theater and seeing Psycho, especially since you've seen the trailer where it's just Alfred Hitchcock walking around the hotel, the land, and you don't get to see really like what the movie is going to be, and he's setting it up for you, and the way he just tells the story.
And in this house, the most dire, horrible events took place.
And like it gets you. I just can't imagine like being sold on that by like, oh man, what is this movie going to be? And then going to actually see it in the theater in 1960. I just honestly, I can't imagine what that was like just how people were seeing that.
Yeah, that trailer is a gem in its own. I mean, what a promotional tool to use, and doing a tour of the Bates Motel and the mansion, and as you say, not knowing what anything's about. And did you notice at the end of that trailer who was in the shower? So it's Vera Mays.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Who do you think it was? Janet Leigh?
Yeah, it was Janet Leigh's the original one in the shower. Oh, okay. So that they're kind of teasing a little bit about what the movie is gonna be, but not giving anything away. So
they're basically putting Vera Mays in the shower, right?
Yeah.
When you're watching the titles, I mean, if you were in the movies back then, you think Janet Leigh's the star.
Yes.
She's going to be in it from the start to the finish. She stars in this Alfred Hitchcock movie, Psycho, one that what it's about. And you see the name Vera Mays come up. So if you've seen the trailer, you think, oh, the bad thing's going to happen to Vera Mays.
Exactly. They totally mislead you. And then even the movie, when it starts, it doesn't feel like, because it's the movie when it came out in the 1960s, the way they're setting it up, it's like when horror movies get to like the 1980s and even like maybe in the 1970s, you might kind of have like a cold open, but to get the crowd invested in the horror. But they're not doing that in this movie. They're showing her going to work, and it kind of seems like it might be like a crime film, like a girl on the run, like a thief, like do you have sympathy for her in the beginning of this movie, Janet Leigh?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. First of all, what you're saying about how it starts and then it just switches. I was watching the making of the game during the week, and that is actually all down to the screenwriter, Joseph Stefano, because I have read the book Psycho. I've read it twice. I read it years ago, about 20 odd years ago, and then I read it again about 4 or 5 years ago again. It kind of starts off with Norman's thoughts and him in the motel, and then it's raining outside and a car pulls up, and it's Janet Leigh's character, and she's called Mary in the book. But they couldn't call her Mary in the film because there was actually a Mary Crane in the same area where either the film or the film was set, and they had to change it because that. So they changed it to Marion. Yeah. And then each chapter kind of like flips between Norman and Marion, what she's thinking, and back and forward. So it kind of starts off with like Norman's there at the very start, and even in the book, it's all this big reveal about who's the mother, and he's having conversations with the mother throughout it. And, so even in the book, it's kept that she's alive, then you don't find it to the end. It's just actually dead and he's killed her, from what I can remember. So it was Joseph Stefano who said that he devised this idea that it would start off just showing you about Marion, and basically halfway through the film, you think it's about her stealing this money, and then she's killed. And in his words, he says, it's not about, then you realise the film's not about her, it's about him, Norman Bates. And that's why the film's kind of like in those two parts of her and then Norman. And that was designed in a way that your sympathy would switch from Marion to Norman, and you would be even more shocked when you find out that Norman's the killer.
Yeah.
And the reason you're saying today I have sympathy for Marion, I suppose in a lot of ways I do, because there's layers in this film of she's around 30 or in her 30s. She's not married. And for back then, to not be married or have kids, I have to be careful I say, it's almost seen as if your time's running out. There wasn't very many people back in those days who were in their 30s and not married and had kids.
It was viewed at that time as sad, almost like you had even like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum.
No.
In that movie, he's killing widows. So basically, right. Her husband, the one lead woman, her husband, he got killed, basically. He got the death penalty. So anyway, people in town, the other women in town are like, oh, when are you going to settle down again? You need a man. Like, like a woman wasn't seen as somebody who should be alone. And in this movie, it's like, yeah, she's alone. She's still single, and she's seeing a married man in the beginning of the movie. Yes. So like that's why I was wondering if you had sympathy, because then she steals the money from her boss, and even though the guy she steals from, he's a schmuck anyway, but like they're kind of setting her up as like her morals aren't the best, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I actually think that deep down she's a good person, because the backstory is that her and her sister are orphans, and she had to leave college to raise the sister, so the sister could go to college, and she's working to look after them. As you say, she finds herself in her 30s, and she's with this man, and especially back in those days, the fact that that man was still married, they had to have their affair in secret. Because an affair, he's separated, he's trying to get divorced.
Yeah.
But even for her to be going with a man who's still legally married, that was frowned upon.
We can even have dinner, but respectably.
And the next thing is that this guy comes in, not even our boss. Is it the oil tycoon? I can't remember his name now.
I don't remember what his name was. He comes in with the guy who's going to put the $40,000 in their safe in the building. And he's making little comments about I wouldn't carry enough money around unless I was able to lose it. Like essentially, like it was not a big deal to him if he lost this money.
And not only that, he's brilliant. What's he doing with the money? He's coming in and he's putting the money in because he's buying a property for his 18-year-old daughter who's getting married.
Yeah, exactly.
So Marion looks at this, and it's a moment of madness for her, to be honest. And she basically turns around and she must feel very kind of, it must be hurtful. You know what I mean? There's a woman in her 30s in a relationship with a man that she knows she can't bring it out in the open. She tells him in the hotel room before that, let's get married. And he's like, well, we can't do it yet because I've got all these debts as well. And here's an opportunity to present itself to her to take this money and maybe start a new life. But as I was saying, it's kind of hurtful to her that there's an 18-year-old girl whose dad's not only getting married, but whose dad's going to buy a house for her. It's kind of like the life that she probably would have liked to have had. And not only that, the secretary as well is made a comment about a scene he must have been flirting with you. He must have noticed my wedding ring. Now, it's very funny that she says, oh, he's flirting with you because he notices I'm married. But there again, there's another woman who she works with who's married. So you've got all this kind of stuff going on around Marion, which kind of makes her think that this is a good idea, that she should take this money and run off with it. So Sam can clear his debts, get divorced, and they get married and start this new life.
Yes, and actually that's the perfect way. And I never really even realized that. Like, you telling me that, like, she was an orphan, her sister was an orphan, and that explains why their relationship is so close and why she would even get that way. Like, she probably never had any kind of financial stability. Like, this is probably the most financially stable she is, but her personal life isn't even compared to her, you know, her career. And, you know, maybe her career, she doesn't make that much money. But for her to be going now, like, willing to risk it all for the possibility of happiness is... I never really even thought about it like that. I always kind of just thought it was... I always kind of had, like, mixed feelings on her, because by the time she's in the car and she leaves, like, after getting pulled over, and she's probably going to get away with it, I always just kind of had this feeling like she kind of did something a little bit dirty, and I never understood, like what her motivations were exactly, but you've kind of opened my eyes to that. Like, now, like, I understand what would push her, because she does kind of get cold feet. She was going to bring the money back. Sense of clarity, almost.
Yeah, and that's... I actually said it earlier. I didn't mean to say it as a pun about a moment of madness. And the clarity comes there when she has this conversation with Norman, which is probably my favourite scene in the whole movie. Is when Norman and Bates are in the back of the parlour. They're having the sandwiches. And the dialogue back and forward. And I always feel as if there's that at first... I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel as if there's an attraction there, which is really weird.
I think they are kind of attracted to each other. First of all, like... when we look back on Norman Bates in hindsight, we kind of look at him like as like kind of a creep, but really, the way Anthony Perkins plays him is unbelievable. He's just so charming.
It might be nicer and warmer in the office.
Like, Sam is a nice guy from what we see, but he is married. He's still kind of trying to get away from the marriage that he's in, and he's not fully committing yet to Marion. So for this guy, like, he's a very nice. He's like, oh, why don't you come inside and I'll cook you something. I'll give you some dinner. Like, just really like nurturing her, something that she's not used to getting. And it's coming from a guy who does seem genuine. And I believe in his mind, he is being genuine. He just doesn't know how to control himself.
Yeah. And the thing is about Anthony Perkins is that Norman Bates in the book is nothing like Anthony Perkins. Because Norman Bates in the book, he's small, he's fat, he's bald, and he's not a very handsome guy. Whereas like Anthony Perkins, we all think of Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, this creepy, guy who runs a hotel. But back then, he was actually a leading man, and he was in a lot of like romantic type of movies and things like that. So again, tricking the audience, thinking, where's this going? And then she realizes herself that this man is in a bigger trap than what she's in. And that's what you're saying about the sense of clarity. And that's what I was saying earlier about the pun. He actually says about his mother goes a bit mad sometimes, haven't you?
Yeah.
And then it dawns on her. She's like, yes, I've made a mistake here. That's what she's thinking. And the ironic thing is that, as I know, what gets me about this movie, John, is that the ironic thing is that she didn't have to steal the money. She didn't have to drive all that way. When she has this moment of clarity, there's this train of thought that she gets in the shower. That's a cleansing moment for her. I say it's not too late for her to go back and give the money and iron everything out. Then she's murdered in the shower, and it's just such a sad thing. Is that she done something which she didn't have to do, and because she done that, she ended up with worse consequences than stealing. Does that make sense? I'm not trying to justify her being killed in the shower, by the way, because there is this kind of thing that, oh, she done something bad, so she deserves to be punished. But it's more kind of like, there's this ironic to me twist to it, this ironic feeling that, she was just about to get away, she was just about to go back.
It makes me wonder if, like, the censors, like, because we were talking about, like, because, they had a code at the time. I'm sure the movie code of what things they're allowed to show and what they're not allowed to show. Also, like, certain morals are not allowed to be broken in these kinds of movies. It makes me wonder if, like, this was him just floating that line, Alfred Hitchcock, as much as he possibly could. Like, this is like how he can justify killing her, is saying, well, look, she's a thief. Like, not to us, but to, like, the censors. In the sense, like, or the MPA when they're rating these movies. Like, obviously, this is before that, but I'm just, like, saying, like, it's impossible that she was, they showed her doing bad things, and that's the only way we can justify her dying. Same thing with Norman Bates. We gotta make sure that there's a happy ending to these movies, and it's not the happy ending, but at least, like, the bad guy got caught.
He get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we had to
No,
have
no,
those
but
happen.
I didn't think about it like that.
I was just always thought of it like that's like why he would do that, like make sure to show her. But then, like, right, because you said it, like, she's not a bad person, and you could just see how everybody else reacts to her doing this. Like, they don't believe that was in her. Like, even her boss is like, oh, it must have been some kind of mistake. She never seemed like this kind of person. Like, when Sam and her sister get there, they're like defending her like every which way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. She's not that kind of person. So when you said like maybe she had a little bit of madness, like maybe she just had that moment of where she lost it. She saw her possible way out to like her chance at a good life, and unfortunately it was too little too late. That's why he said like it's tragic. It is what happens to her.
Yeah, tragic's the right word, probably what I should have been looking for. I couldn't think of it though. It is tragic. And the funny thing is as well, you said about she was doing this bad thing as well, but when she's driving the car, she's driving cross country, and she's thinking about what people are going to be saying about her, about taking the money, and they wouldn't believe she would do it and all this here. But there's a part of her as well, towards the end, as she's approaching the motel, where she smiles into the camera when she's thinking about, I can't remember the exact line it was said, but when she's thinking about the oil tycoon, about how much it's going to annoy him, and there's this wee grin on her face as if, it's almost like she's saying, you deserve it, he deserves it, because he talks about at the start as well about, I can't buy happiness, but I can buy off unhappiness, and it's almost like she's reveling in stealing this money on him, as if, how unhappy is he going to be, his daughter won't be able to get the house. And
they definitely set that guy up to be just a terrible, terrible person to everybody else but himself, which is good. And that's what makes us kind of root for her a little bit more, is because, she robbed somebody who probably didn't deserve to have that money. I mean, we're talking about class in 1960, something we're still talking about, 63 years later now. And that just shows the genius of Alfred Hitchcock, too, is that he was ahead of his time. Imagine the movies, like, you said this to me, like, when we were having, like, private conversations and about Psycho 2 and Psycho 3, and, like, you said if Alfred Hitchcock could, he would have definitely put some sleaze in his movies in the 1950s and 60s, but it couldn't work in the studio system, and he had a long-running relationship with the studio system. I think Paramount, right? Or CBS, which I think is...
Universal Studios, actually. Universal was his main studio. He had a chalet bungalow and all there. And I believe that it was actually... the problem with this film was because it was so sleazy and violent and creepy, before it was even made, before he even shot a scene, nobody wanted to make it. He put up his own money to make this movie, and he filmed it on Universal Studios backlot, but I'm near certain it was Paramount that distributed it, but now Universal own it again, so I'm not sure what happened there.
I'm sure that they probably were worried that this was going to be a little too, like, pushing it a little too far. Was it this movie where Alfred Hitchcock said that if you weren't there for the beginning, you couldn't see the movie? I don't,
that's right.
Right?
Because of the twist, because Marion gets killed halfway through the movie, he didn't want people coming in and going, where is she? I'm ruining the shock moment, what he's seen as the biggest shock moment of her being killed. But what you were saying there about the sleaziness and the boundaries and things, just talking about the oil tycoon as well. I mean, stuff had to be cut out of this movie, and I have the uncut version. I think most people do. I think it's actually on that whole box set as well.
Yeah, you can watch you can watch both. You got the theatrical and the uncut.
I don't think this bit of dialogue is even in the uncut version, so I think it was in the remake, funny enough, the Gus Van Sant remake. It's at the start when Marion comes in and says that I'm going to take a half day, I've got a headache, the manager says, yes, go on. And I think that I could say something along the lines of, you need a weekend in Las Vegas. He's trying to seduce her. But she says, no, I'm going to spend this weekend in bed. And when she closes the door, the oil tycoon turns around and says, the second biggest playground in the world. Something like that. Because he says Las Vegas is the first biggest playground in the world. And when she closes the door with the bed, he says, oh, the second biggest playground in the world. So he's being sleazy and making kind of like a sexual reference as well. And also, one of the things you're talking about Alfred Hitchcock as well, the genius of Alfred Hitchcock, and people might think you look too much into these things, but filmmakers actually take these things into consideration. So when you see Marion at the start in the bed with Sam, she's wearing a white bra, and when she decides to steal the money, she's wearing a black bra, and that's actually deliberate on the part of Alfred Hitchcock. White for
Good.
black for bad.
Yep, like leading into like the westerns at the time. Oh, the white hat or the black hat. It's always got to be black.
Yeah.
It's always everything's got to be black or white. We can't ever have the moral gray area where it's like, some good people do some bad things and vice versa. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then they trimmed some scenes, which is in the version of her taking the bra off when she's in the motel room as well. So he was pushing all those boundaries too. The fact that, even that he would show a woman having an affair in a whole motel room at like, what time was it? During the day?
It was like before lunch, right? It was like 11, 12 in the morning. I always thought it was like. I was like, she must have like drove over there fast. They met up quick, and then she went back.
Yeah. So a lot of those kind of moral codes were being broken in 1959 and 1960 by Hitchcock.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if he wanted like Sam to be like fully married, but they're like, throw in the line where he's getting divorced so it looks a little less bad, Because if he's like fully committed to his regular wife and he's just using, Janet Leigh's Marion as like just a side piece, it's a little bit more messed up than actually like, I love you. I'm just trying to get out of a situation I'm not happy in anymore.
I'm trying to remember the book. I'm near certain it's kind of the same in the book that he is he's getting divorced and he's not with his wife.
Okay, so that's fair. That's a little bit more understandable. Like, you can't get divorced right away, so take some time.
Yeah, but if he was still with his wife, that makes sense from point of view of her saying, well, I'll just come and live in your store. And he says,
live with me in a storeroom behind a hardware store in Fairvale. We'll have lots of laughs. Tell you what, when I send my ex-wife for alimony, you can lick the stamps.
But if he was still with his wife, obviously he wouldn't want her to come to Fairvale, wouldn't he, Matt?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like in a more modern movie, like we've seen this in other movies like Up in the Air, and like where guys or women even, are hiding the fact that they're married and they are happily married, but they're using and keeping somebody on the hook just for sex. That's it. Like, and you can see that being the possibility with Sam, but we know that Sam's getting divorced, so he's not doing that. But it wouldn't be a surprise if like that all turned out to be a lie and he basically tricked Janet Leigh and just used her.
Well, in the TV show, I think they do that, and I didn't particularly like the TV show.
Yeah, I haven't seen Bates Motel. I heard it was good. I just never got up to it. It's really hard for me to see anybody else playing Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins is Norman Bates to me. I just can't. He's perfect in that role. He brings the certain charm he brings to that role is just so believable. Even in Psycho 2, 3, and even in 4, you get glimpses of that old. And he dies only a couple years after that movie.
That's right.
So it what he brings, and I read a lot up on Anthony Perkins for the show. I was just very fascinated on like how his personal life was and how quiet of an individual he was, and his mannerisms they were talking about a lot.
It defined his career. He couldn't get away from Norman Bates, and I think by the 80s he actually decided to embrace it. But there was a long time. 1960 till the 80s, 20 years, like he just couldn't get away from under the shadow of Norman Bates.
He's one of the most famous. Norman Bates is one of the most famous movie characters ever, and it's funny. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit younger than you, so I actually saw Scream before I saw Psycho. So the line where he's like, we all go a little bit mad sometimes, and then he shoots her, and he's like,
Anthony Perkins, Psycho.
I always think of that when I hear we all go a little mad sometimes. So Scream pops in my head right away. It's like the movie incepted me.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't see the original Psycho. It must have been around 1998. The reason being was that when I was growing up, I had relatives who would talk about Alfred Hitchcock and stuff like that. Older people as well in the family, and we went to Florida in '93 and we visited Universal Studios and we got to see the motel and the house from Psycho 4.
Oh, that's awesome.
A class have actually got a photograph of it, of me standing in front of the house.
Oh, that's so cool.
With my brother and my dad, yeah. I must actually send you it. And there was actually a show in there as well at that particular time. I don't know if you know this, John, or heard of it. They actually done a show where they showed you how they actually filmed the shower scene.
No, I didn't even know about that, but that's really cool.
Yeah, so I was 11. My brother must have been about 10. And my mum and dad were with us, and I remember them saying to us, do you just want to go in and see this, or if you think it'll be too scary, then you don't have to go in. But me hearing something's going to be scary, get me in there. So we went in, and it was like a theatre, and there was chairs and a stage. And I remember there was a model of the Bates Motel, and it was lit up with lights. They came out, this is just from my memory now, 30 years, I was there 30 years ago. So they came out, and there was two guys, and I think one was dressed up as Norman Bates, I can't remember. They had a woman dressed up as Janet Leigh, and they just went through how they actually filmed the scene, and then they showed it on the screen, the actual filmed scene. I think you can go on YouTube and look that up. You can actually go on and look it up. So many people filmed it when they were at Universal Studios. But that was kind of my first kind of, I'd always heard about Psycho and things because older people in the family would talk about Psycho and Hitchcock and stuff like that, and The Birds and movies like that. So it was always like this, like, it's like maybe I suppose it's like younger people, Jaws, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Jaws thing. You know, people were doing the Psycho theme, but you hadn't seen the movie. To be honest, I wasn't allowed to watch the movie at that age. I was too young. And then the Gus, and I'm ashamed to say this, the Gus Van Sant remake came out, and I went to the cinema and I watched it. And I loved it.
Well,
and it must have been the same year. Psycho was on TV on really late one night, and I recorded the original Psycho. So I recorded, and I actually watched the original, and it just blew the remake out of the water. I mean, I just totally absolutely fell in love with the original movie, despite it being at that time nearly 40 years old.
I didn't have that happen to me, but I can imagine that happening. I actually saw the original Psycho. So the original Psycho for me, it was one of those movies that when I started getting into horror, I was still really young. I saw it at like 9 or 10, but it was one of those movies. It's like if you're into horror, you have to see Psycho. So I saw Psycho really young, but I didn't see because I had already been reading about film and everything. So it took me a long time to see Gus Van Sant's Psycho. But I was like, all right, one of these, so I think like 2012, I finally sat down and I'm like, I'm going to try it. And I was like, I just don't understand what the point is. Like, why would you go for a shot-for-shot remake with different actors? Like, now I got to try and see. And I had already seen plenty of Vince Vaughn. Like, it's 2012, so I've seen pretty much all of his comedies that he's most known for by then.
Kemosabe's going to have some flavor. I'm going to choose not to eat with you.
We're not going to eat together?
No.
You know, I've seen Wedding Crashes, I've seen Old School, and now I'm trying to see Vince Vaughn try and play Norman Bates, and I just can't get out of my head that he's trying, and he's acting, and that's Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
I can't move past it. It's just something with me. It just doesn't click.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was that I watched, as I said, seen that before the original, just because of circumstance, you know. I don't remember. I'd only started really buying VHSs then, you know. I was only in the mid to late teens, and I'd only just started working. So, you know, I didn't have too many VHS, didn't have much money, didn't have too many VHS. So it wasn't a case that I was seeking out to watch Psycho. When I always wanted to watch it. And it was never on TV or anything. Even when it did come on that TV that year, it was on really late at night. I had to set the VCR.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
I remember doing that.
Yeah.
I remember doing that. I did that for, you remember the Nickelodeon show Rugrats?
Yes.
Well, I remember setting the VCR to record, it was on a Sunday, and I was at my dad's house, and my mom's like, I'll set the VCR and record the marathon for you so you can watch it when you get home. And I watched like 12 episodes of Rugrats on VHS like that when I got home.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember having, that was like on the early hours and setting it to record it. So I had just seen the Gus Van Sant one out of circumstance, so I didn't know what the original was like. And then a year later, a couple of years later, I just got my DVD, my new DVD player. I remember asking for Psycho on DVD. My parents get me Psycho for my birthday. It was my birthday. Buy me it for my birthday. And it says, make sure it's not the remake, not the original. My birthday. Happy birthday. It was the bloody remake.
No,
I've still got it. Where is it? I've kept it.
Well, hey, at least you got some use out of it.
But then I had to go and buy the original by myself. I was like, I definitely have to go and buy the original, because when I watch the original, it's, as you said, it's not a patch on the remake. And even now, when I watch Psycho or even the sequels, I never watch that. I mean, there's no reason to even watch it.
No, you almost have it's almost like just a rite of passage where it's like, you gotta see it once at least and see what it is. And then it's just like mind blowing that it's just the same exact movie, and it's not as effective. It really isn't, especially seeing it in color. It just doesn't work as well. Like, me and you have talked about this, but I know we stand in the same place. Like, black and white, it's not just there to because to save money. It's also an artistic choice, and like The Mist came out on 4K this week, and I watched the black and white version. I split it actually. I watched half in color, half in black and white to compare it, and it's just night and day. The black and white is so much better. And
well, according to Hitchcock, the reason he done this in black and white originally was because it was going to be too gory. And that was his way of getting around that problem, was to do it in black and white. It's not, it wouldn't be as gory. But then, as you say about cost, that also then helped the cost of the movie because he had to finance it himself. And he actually used his television crew that worked on Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
I was wondering that.
So it wasn't even a movie crew.
Yeah, it looks like that, honestly. It looks like it's Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah, and I think at one stage, they were actually considering making it a 2-part episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, where it would end when she get killed in the shower, and the second part would be where it picks up after that. And you can see that in the movie, kind of in a lot of ways, that it is 2 parts.
It makes sense, honestly. It really did. Once she dies, the movie totally does a 180. Obviously, we have callbacks with Sam and her sister showing up, but we don't really get any references to what happens with the money anymore. It's not a big deal anymore. The money is it was a MacGuffin for the first act, but that was really what was building the tension. I mean, they spend a lot of time in the first half of this movie just with her driving. The scene with the cop, that goes on for a good amount of time. Her buying the used car, all that stuff takes some time, and it's not very memorable. It never gets really brought up when they talk about the movie, is that whole sequence of her being on the run from the cop, essentially, and being worried and building that tension and anxiety for us. They don't bring that up as much. They always bring up the second half of the movie with Norman Bates and being at the Bates Motel.
You're right. It's all about building the tension and suspense. I think it's designed to throw you. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Robert Rodriguez done it years later From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes.
That's totally where he got that from. Other movies have done it. But I think I would say the closest to Psycho, but what I mean is that the fact that he took a half a movie telling this story about 2 criminals on the run and taking people hostage, and halfway through, all of a sudden, they go into a bar and they all turn into vampires. Nobody's seen that coming.
No, it's a full 180.
Yeah, and that's what that whole purpose to me is, for the first half of that movie. And you're right, the money is a MacGuffin. It's not about the money. The money's irrelevant. And that's the whole point at the end when the psychiatrist, and somebody asks, well, what happened to $40,000? And he says, the swamp got that. This was crimes of passion, not profit. So the money it's not about the money.
That's not important to the story, but it's there as it's just a MacGuffin. It's just there for a reason for her to justify why she got to the Bates Motel to begin with. All the things that led her to that point. I also just want to point out a quick shot. I just love when she's pulling up to the Bates Motel and it's raining out and you see the sign in neon. That black and white I love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie. It's simple, but it's very effective.
Yeah, and the music as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, the score to this movie. I mean, it's one of the most famous stingers ever when the shower curtains and he goes... It's one of the most famous things in film history, probably.
As effective as the shower scene is, probably very graphic and very kind of disturbing for the time. The one that always gets me about is when Arbogast is killed.
Oh, yeah. That one is actually, I don't know how they filmed that. That's very fascinating to me, how he goes down the stairs backward. Oh, my God. That one always gets me.
As far as I know, it's he's taking a crane, but a bucket chair.
Oh.
In front of him.
Okay, I could see that.
I'm not sure if it was filmed on the set or that's rear projection.
Yeah, well, whatever they did.
Maybe rear projection.
Rear projection would make sense, too. Yeah. But
it's just how the camera is actually just above the set, and you can see him coming up the steps.
Yeah.
And then the way Mother just comes around the corner of the bedroom, it's just really
scary.
The timing's amazing.
Yeah.
And then when the music, you know what I mean, starts as soon as she comes around the corner. And I have to say, it kind of makes me jump.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit scary how that worked out. And honestly, A lot of first-person sequence, a lot of the ways that Alfred Hitchcock uses the camera in this movie is impressive for 1960. It must have been a lot harder than, like, we take that stuff for granted now. Like, you see a lot of times where they put, the way they put cameras in places now, but we didn't even get the Steadicam until 1980, so imagine what they had to do here in 1960 and filming in 1959.
And especially, I talk about that camera being above, like that.
Yeah.
He does the exact same shot later in the movie. On after that.
Yes.
But what he actually does is, if I can remember correctly here, the camera follows Anthony Perkins up the stairs and drifts up and spins round and ends on that same angle that he had when Arbogast was killed. And that's when Norman's talking to Mother. And this is one of the funniest parts in the movie for me, where he says that they came for him, they came from the girl, now they're going to come from him. I'll have to put you down in the fruit cellar. And he's like, you're not putting me in the fruit cellar. Do you think I'm fruity? And then he says, come now, Mother. I'll carry you. And she says, and you hear her saying, put me down. I can walk myself. When you see him carrying her down the stairs.
What was going on in his head at that moment? That's the one.
Well, that's what I like about, as we briefly talked to private messages about the sequels.
Yeah.
There's stuff in Psycho 3 that you don't see in Psycho 2, and you don't see in Psycho 1. You hear about it.
Yeah.
But you actually see it in Psycho 3, and that creeped me out of that, you know. And you see a bit of it in Psycho 4 as well, like him talking to Mother.
Yeah,
Mother moving.
Yeah, well, my biggest
you know
flaw.
She's dead.
Yeah, even though
so
she's
you're kind of seeing what he's seeing.
My biggest flaw in Psycho 4 is that I just can't see that person being his mother. That's the actress that they have. I get it. It's a TV movie, and you're not gonna go for the complete authenticity, but it just feels like the movie is supposed to take place in the 1950s or the early 1950s, but it still looks like 1990. She doesn't look like she's going to turn into that woman. I just have a really hard time buying it, but it does have certain aspects that do actually fill some gaps that I appreciated.
Yeah, I think that made up for that by Norman says at the start of that movie that she grew old in my mind. You know?
Yep.
Listen, the fourth one to me has some merit. It was the same writer from Psycho 1 wrote Psycho 4.
Which I thought
I think
was cool.
He disregarded Psycho 2 and 3 when he wrote it, because he says he didn't like them. A lot of stuff in that movie is referenced in the original Psycho. So, and I suppose if you're, how can I say this without sounding weird? But you know what I mean? It's like, they suggest an incestuous kind of relationship. So I suppose they couldn't have made his mother an old hag.
That is true, I guess, but you're right. They do kind of explain it. She grew old in my mind. And I guess, it just felt like she was a young mother, because Henry Thomas plays the young Norman Bates in that movie. And I love Henry Thomas, but he's bad in that movie.
Yeah.
And, their age gap isn't that much. And I guess it's kind of believable that maybe he, she's not that much older than him. Obviously in 1960, you're going to assume that his mother is an older lady just by assumption of the times. So I guess that, we can fill that gap and say she was a younger lady. It's just the voice, like, it just doesn't match up to me, but I guess they can explain it away like that.
Well, I think he was 18 in that movie. She must have been near 40. Wasn't she about him? Mid-30s, late 30s?
Yeah,
maybe 40?
She looked very young. I mean, I guess she could have had him at like 19, 20.
When she was 16, she was in Romeo and Juliet, and that came out in the late 60s.
Okay, so she was... Alright, so she's probably aged. She just aged very gracefully. She just looked very...
Probably.
She just looked pretty young. I mean, obviously, you have the scenes in that movie when they're laying in bed together to set up, like you said, that like they had a sexual relationship, which would turn somebody into this. So that would definitely put some lasting scars if your mother was sleeping with you. So you can understand why he would have a split personality disorder.
Well, the thing is about Psycho is that it's one of my favourite films. It's my favourite horror movie. And the first few times I've seen it, it's scary. But then it becomes like a comedy. And I don't mean that in a kind of bad way. Alfred Hitchcock himself, I think, described it as a black comedy. He says he didn't see it as a horror movie. And he's right. Because when you watch it, you hear how Norman references his mother and the things that go on. Like, for example, I just said there about he's having a conversation, obviously, with himself about his dead mother, and she's saying, put me down, I can walk myself.
Yeah, that's... And
things like that. You put me in the fruit cellar before, boy, and you're not going to do it again. And he's like, now come, mother. And then carries her down anyway. It's just, and even the wee things when he says the Marion at the start, when they're in the parlour, I carried urns for my mother. Now, she's dead. It's like, what urns do you do for your mother? I just find all that funny now. And the best thing about it is, usually when you watch a movie with a twist, once you know the twist of a movie, it's hard to watch it again.
Very hard.
Because you know the twist. But with this, even with the twist, to me, you can watch it again and again and again. Even though you know what's coming, you know the end, and you know she's dead, and it's just the way Hitchcock sets it up.
Oh, yeah. There's just exactly. First of all, it's structured so well, shot so well. And then on top of that, I just really think Anthony Perkins gives a world-class performance in this movie. I want to watch him play Norman Bates. Like, I love it. Like, I know you're a big fan of the sequels, and I just think he gives another great performance in Psycho 2 as well. This movie just wouldn't work as well if somebody else is playing Norman Bates. He's just that good, and yeah, I think he gets a little bit... I mean, I guess he's very appreciated for it, but when you talk about horror movie performances, we kind of got lost in the 80s where there was a lot of bad acting, which I love, because, 80s movies are the best. But he gives a great acting performance in this movie, and in the other ones. Yeah,
without a doubt, and I think we talked about this when you got the box set, the Arrow box set, and we were messaging about the box sets, and I was saying to you about Psycho 2. The whole idea of making a sequel to Psycho in the late 70s, early 80s was ludicrous, because I don't think anybody expected that you could make a sequel to one of the greatest films of all time, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, especially 20 years after the fact. Now, we're in an era now where they're making sequels to movies that came out in the 80s, and it's became commonplace now. They call them legacy sequels.
Yeah. This one did it first. Psycho was the first.
Exactly. This one done it 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And originally, it was going to be a TV movie, and they wanted Christopher Walken.
I guess I could see that for the time, like around the Dead Zone time and everything like that. I guess this was more of like when he was a serious actor before he started to become like almost like a satire of himself.
Yeah, a caricature of himself.
Yeah. Normally, plants don't have eyes, so it's hard for me to trust them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think the reason they were thinking Christopher Walken was because they thought themselves Anthony Perkins wouldn't be interested. But once, I don't know when they approached him, but once he showed interest, Universal then changed it. This isn't going to be a TV movie. It's going to be a motion picture. It's going to be in the cinemas. So that was how it kind of started again.
Yeah, and we've talked about Psycho 2. Psycho 2, for people who haven't seen it, really has a stacked people. The amount of people working on that movie who would end up being even bigger, like Tom Holland, who people know directed the first Child's Play. I think you told me this was his first screenplay. Jerry Goldsmith does the score on it. Robert Franklin directed it. Like, a lot of good people were involved in making that movie, and it really shouldn't be tossed aside as just a regular 80s slasher, because it's not. It's actually a really good psychological thriller. Obviously, the problem is Psycho casts the most massive shadow over it that almost people kind of, even to this day, if you hear people talking about Psycho, they never bring up the sequels.
Yeah, listen, I was the same. Funny enough, I was probably a wee bit more of a movie snob to a certain extent when I first watched Psycho, because I'd watched the sequels to like Neighbour on Elm Street films, and some of them kind of ruined it for me. And I was staying away from Psycho 2 and Psycho 3. I'd watched actually Psycho 4, but I was staying away from Psycho 2 and 3. And it was actually my mum said to me, says, "No, you should watch the sequels because they're really good." And I bit the ball and I watched them, and I'm glad I did, because I really enjoy Psycho 2 and I especially enjoy Psycho 3. And I know that a lot of people see, out of the first three, I know a lot of people see 3 as the weakest, but I don't know. I really, really like Psycho 3. I look at Psycho 2 a means to an end. You know, it's to get me to Psycho 3. It's to explain how is Norman back and why is he crazy again.
Yeah, it's definitely, you have to see Psycho 2 to get to Psycho 3. I like aspects of Psycho 3 more than Psycho 2. I just think Psycho 2, like you said, like I think we all go through that film snob phase where we all think that we just know film better than us, and we kind of ignore the trashy stuff just because it's like it makes us, as film fans, we want to like be like very highbrow. But then you're like, well, that's just stupid of me. I'm depriving myself of something I enjoy. And it's really dumb to do that, because Psycho 3 is a great movie. It's not, I don't like it as much as Psycho 2, but it is a lot of fun, and it feels very much of the 1980s, and I just really appreciate that, especially the character of Duke.
Playing the guitar.
Yeah, with those denim he's wearing, his mullet, just so much of the 1980s.
It's brilliant. That's what I'm saying. It's like you're saying you're depriving yourself. In later years, I haven't gone to watch the likes of like all the Friday, all the Friday the 13th. I still haven't watched Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X. Although I've been trying to get them, it's been difficult to get them. I can't really get them over here for some reason.
They're very
but
hard.
Like, I went back and watched all the Friday the 13th and watched all the Name and Elm Streets again. And as a horror fan, I want to watch them again and again, and I want to have them in the collection, even Freddy's Dead. And although I'm a guilty pleasure for Jason Takes Manhattan.
I know a lot of people like Jason Takes Manhattan. I like to call it Jason Takes a Ferry to New Jersey, from New Jersey to Manhattan, because I don't know how the hell he got out of Crystal Lake. There is no outlet there.
Exactly, and he didn't even go to Manhattan. It was Toronto or something. It was Canada. It was filmed in or something.
Yeah, it was filmed in Alberta. They did the same thing with Scream 6. It's never filmed in New York. They've always filmed it in Canada.
Though I do love this shot. Is it the end or the start? At the start, it shows you Times Square, and you can see the big Batman symbol because it was filmed in 1989. They're advertising Batman.
Yeah, and actually, that's my favorite part.
And it pans up at Times Square, and it's just class looking.
Yeah, and I also love the old Coca-Cola logo that they had in Times Square. Times Square just doesn't look like that anymore. Back then, you just couldn't replace that, and it does. And I think they had did they have a Glenn Frey song as the opening to that one too? I think it was a Glenn Frey song.
There's a song of it. I don't know who sings it. It's called Dark Side of the Night.
I always get it mixed up with The Heat Is On, which is another song he did.
Yeah. Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was for.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Psycho 3, one thing they show you that we don't get to actually see in the other movies is we get to see people actually at the motel, buying rooms, because they have, what is it, some kind of college football games going on? So that's whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone's in town for that, so we get a bunch of drunks and teens, and this is where it's like, it's 1980s, so we gotta build up some real shitty teenagers and have them all killed off.
And it's so sleazy.
Oh,
the whole thing is so sleazy. I know I'm going to sound bad here, but I love it. It's brilliant. What I love about the third one is how it's shot, how it looks, the colours that Anthony Perkins uses in that movie, along with the score as well. I really love that score in the third movie, and it would have been so easy. Even the score in Psycho 2 is amazing as well.
Oh, it's great.
It would have been so easy for them just to pick Bernard Herrmann's score and play it over it. To me, they bring something fresh to those first two sequels to those movies, which make me want to go back and watch them again. It's not the same. To me, it's not the same thing being done over again. And I understand a lot of people see there's more similarities in maybe Psycho 3 to Psycho 1 than there is in Psycho 2 to Psycho 1. Even though Psycho 2 does have a lot of homages. But Psycho 3, to me, it's Anthony Perkins paying homage to Psycho in a lot of things he does. But as I was saying about it so sleazy, it's like, why are all these women attracted to Norman Bates for? I just don't get it.
No, they love him. I mean, that nun. I mean, I get her a little bit because she was she was a member of the Claw. She hadn't had sex probably ever, right? So, and Norman's a good guy, and she just literally met one of the worst people ever. The first guy she meets coming out of this tries to rape her. So, of course, she's already got a bad taste in her mouth. And Norman seems like a real friendly, nice guy. Of course, he's got, the world's biggest secret hidden. But which I do, you kind of do sympathize with him in Psycho 2 and 3. Like, you see him trying to fight it, and people just, they don't stop. They don't stop. They don't leave him alone. Given probably shouldn't have got out of jail or out of the mental institution in 2. I mean, that's to make a sequel, but even if he did, it's like, if they cleared him, like, maybe give him a shot and don't tempt him if he's got something wrong.
But of course, Mr. Toomey was
he's
making a successful business out of it.
He did a good job, but you know what? Honestly, it easily could have gone under with him being gone and all the murders happened there. So you really had no other way other than to turn it into basically a drug motel and for prostitution and everything. He had no options if he wanted the business to stay open. Immediately.
An adult motel.
Yeah, and immediately after he fires Toomey, it becomes a ghost town again.
Norman just doesn't know when he was only a good thing.
No, he didn't have hope for it. He didn't know. Well, he's been in since 1960. He doesn't know how the 80s are.
But that's what I was saying, like, about the women. But even in the third one, they're not a woman. Remember when she goes to the ice machine, the ice bucket or whatever, or freezer, and she offers him back to the room.
Yeah, she's basically like throwing himself at him.
And then I think she's the one that ends up in the ice bucket. thing. And then, do you remember when the cop takes the ice out with the blood on it? And he eats it.
Yeah, that was actually that's the thing in the third one. That's the one where she's like on the toilet and like that's where she gets murdered and everything. Like it's very 1980s. The third movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and even Duke when he picks that girl up from the bar and brings her back.
Oh my god!
And he just then throws her out.
I know he's just throwing it all because what was it? She just wanted to hang out with him. She's like, no, he's throwing her. It's like he's like, here's cab fare. Go call a cab. Sends her to the pay
for working on her. Why don't you get out of here?
Meanwhile, like that's his job. Like,
yeah,
he's supposed to be taking care of this motel, and he just from the very beginning he almost robs the place. Wow,
yeah, that's right. I think that's part of it. Norman says to him, "Why don't you come in the parlor and we'll talk about it?" And he even says to him, "Said the spider to the fly."
Yeah,
and Norman's like, "What?" And he's like, "Nothing."
Nothing. He wouldn't get that. He's like, oh, you'd get that. I know that's one word that they throw around a lot that is just gone complete. I don't know if they still do it where you live, but calling like a back room like that a parlor, because even in the second one, Robert Loggia's like, I'm calling you from the parlor at the hotel, and I'm like, man, how many people have thrown that word around?
No, I don't think I've never heard anybody call a room a parlor. I've heard people call places ice cream parlors, but
yeah, I've heard ice cream parlors, but I've never heard like them say like, oh, I got a parlor in the back. Like I've just never in a conversation that I've ever had with anybody.
I'm actually going to start using that. I'm going to bring it back.
Yeah, hey, bring it back.
I'm going to start calling it the parlor.
Come to the parlor with me, and it's going to be like, what is a parlor, and why are you bringing me back there? Oh, man. But one thing I got to ask you before we do end up ending the show is, what are your thoughts on the ending? Because I've watched many podcasts or listened to podcasts and movies and shows and said that they don't like that they basically just exposition dump you at the end of this movie. I think it's of the time. Like, I don't think people in 1960, I think they wanted the answers to all the questions given to them. I don't think they would do it now, but what do you think of it?
Well, this is the situation where I've been watching these movies for the last 25 years, and it never bothered me until, again, John, as we talked on our other podcasts, is that you come on the internet and then you see people starting to criticize the scene. It doesn't bother me. I think it needed a bit of an explanation, because I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of things online about Norman and Psycho, and they're wrong about his character, and I think it's plain and simple. So when I say it's plain and simple, what I'm saying is that it does. I have no issue with it being in the movie. I don't think it kind of over-explains anything. I don't think it treats the audience like idiots. I do think it needs explained about what's going on. And even funny enough, like the guy that wrote it, when I watched the making of it, and this making of it's about 20 years old or whatever, but when he was actually saying that when they were pushing the boundaries of the censors, like for example, showing a toilet for the first time, and not only that, showing an open toilet and showing a toilet going to flush.
Yeah.
And Hitchcock had said to him, like, we're going to have problems with the censors, they're not being able to show this. And Joseph Stalin was saying, well, I think it's important to have it in the movie. I can't remember why it's important to have a flushing toilet in the movie. I think it's just to show you the notes you wrote, and then that's a clue later on.
Yeah.
But it was Hitchcock that said to him, well, you're going to be the one's going to have to go to the censors and fight for it. And Joseph Stalin, well, okay, well, I'll do that. So he was the one that had to go, wasn't Hitchcock? And he actually said one of the biggest issues that they had with the movie was the word transvestite.
Really? Well, I guess it's 1960.
Mm-hmm.
So
they didn't want that in the movie. But when you think about it, like, this is the thing. To me, Norman Bates, he's not a transvestite. He's not gay either.
No, he's got split personality disorder. Is what he got.
And that's why I'm saying, even though I have seen people saying that, he was gay, he was this, he was that, and I just go to myself, no, he wasn't. He was a split personality. And that's why the psychiatrist explains it. The psychiatrist says that he committed matricide, and that's one of the hardest things for a son to get over. And the only way that he could deal with it was to dress up as his mother, was to talk for his mother, was to keep the illusion that his mother was alive. So the only reason he put the dress on was to keep the illusion that she was alive. And not only that, when he did murder his mother, and it explains this even in the book, he blacks out. He doesn't know he's done it. He thinks that his mother's done it, and he wakes up and cleans the murder scene up to protect her. And even the psychiatrist explains that in the movie. He explains that he was insanely jealous of his mother, so he assumed that his mother was insanely jealous of him, which is why he also explains that he was attracted to Marion Crane, and that set mother off. And that stuff, I don't think people would realise that if that wasn't in it. I'm sorry, I really don't.
I have no problem with the ending myself. I actually, because I saw this movie a little bit younger than I probably should have, that actually taught me a little bit about split personality disorder. And then eventually when you, because this does get used a lot in horror movies, especially after this, it's like, oh, split personality disorder is what is the cause of all this. But you do understand why a person, like you just said, who killed their mother, why the only way to consciously deal with that is to create a different personality, because how do you live with the weight of that on yourself? And the only way is to like completely remove yourself from it and just trick and you can do that. People have been proven to do that, trick their own mind. But I think also in 1960, you do need to explain that to the audience. I don't know how many people are even aware, especially mental disorders or illnesses anyway at the time were not taken seriously. So
yeah,
the audience needed that. I think that to have that there for them, I think they needed to have it fully explained to them. I get it. In 2023, you wouldn't slap that on. You know, we can read between the lines, but 63 years ago, someone had to be the first to explain this to a general audience. So I think it's necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's part of the movie, and it does really bother me. And I think it's done. I've seen people say, you know, it's too long or boring, or I don't think it is. I like the way it's done. You know, when he says to the sister says, did he kill my sister? And he says, yes and no.
Like,
it's
a little more complicated than that.
Yeah, and they're like, are you trying to make a case for this guy? And he's like, no. And she's like, well, my sister's dead. And he's like, yes. Well, and of course, the end, and then when they come in and they say he's feeling a little chill, come and bring him a blanket, that seems absolutely amazing.
Yes. I love that
monologue at the end about the fly, just slowly
panning in on him.
His face.
Yeah, like you'd have to remove that from the ending too. Like I don't think people realize. I love that aspect of the end of the film where she's talking to him in his brain, but it's just him talking to himself. And
his mother's blaming him for everything in his mind.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He was bad. He was always bad. I should have locked him up. In the end, he wanted them to think that I killed those girls. But at the same time, he still killed his mother and her lover. So he did murder people.
He still,
even though he did literally kill the girls, but in his mind, his mother done it. So, and then the look into the camera is the same look which Janet Leigh gives in the car.
Exactly, that little smirk on her face. It's perfect. And
then you see the skull.
Like, that's the perfect way. And, I mean, we didn't talk about the reveal of the mother with the swinging light. I love that shot, by the way. That's another one where it's lit so perfectly to reveal that the dead body's been there. And it's a scary-looking dead body. And
even before that, I love Vera Mays going up the hill. The way the camera's just panning back while she's got, it's during the day too, it's bright day, and the camera's just panning back to see her going up the hill, and then it cuts and it shows you her point of view of what the house looks like carring up, and it's just all that. The suspense is building again, you know, when she goes into the house. And at that stage, as an audience member, you don't know, you think Mother's in the house, you don't know where Mother is, you think Mother's going to try and kill her. But obviously, when you watch it again, you realise that, you know, while she's in that house, nothing's going to happen to her. Because Norman's down in the motel speaking to the boyfriend, and I like when she was in the mother's bedroom and you see the imprint on the bed of the dead body where it's been lying for 10 years. You know, another thing as well that I wanted to point out, about the movie too. Did you notice every single character, or can I say main character? You know, you see the reflection in the mirror, and the only person who don't see the reflection in the mirror is Anthony Perkins. So Alfred Hitchcock is suggesting everybody's two sides to them.
Yeah.
But Norman doesn't, because, you know, he's housing two personalities. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And that makes sense why you wouldn't show him. Like, it's those little story beats, and that's what you get Alfred Hitchcock to do, is write it, tell this kind of story. And it was you who told me, and I didn't know this, and it's very fascinating, is that you told me he actually hated the shooting more than actually he would storyboard the whole thing and get it, like, all the pre-production was more important to him than actually shooting it. That's what he liked the least. And I just find that so fascinating, all the preparation that would have to go into a film like this to actually make it work the way it works, just the way it's structured uniquely, especially for the time. Yeah,
and especially if you're trying to save as much money as possible. I mean, I think that that was part of his motivation, was that there was these kind of like low budget movies coming out at the time, horror movies and stuff as well, and he wanted to prove that he could do this. So obviously you want to cut down your shooting time, don't you? You want to cut down how much film you're using as well. And then he had to devise a way to shoot a very violent scene. And he done it in edits and sound.
Yeah.
Because in the book it's a lot more violent. In the book he actually cuts her head off. So he couldn't show that.
No, that would have gone over very badly. It's just fascinating. And another thing is that we just going from Psycho to Psycho 2, they kind of gloss over it, but Sam ends up marrying her sister.
Yeah.
I just, like, they kind of like, oh, Sam died a few years ago. I'm like, how did that happen? Like, so he was divorcing his wife and sleeping with her. Did Sam go, kind of out of a girl now, and you're very beautiful?
Yeah, I suppose if you read between the lines, they could bond over the loss of a loved one.
I figured that's what it was. It was so funny to me, and too, how they kind of just glossed over that. I was like, because I only seen Psycho 2, like I told you, a long time ago, so I would have never picked up on that. So when they said that, I was like, is that what I think they're talking about? Or did I miss that? Is that a different name? I was like, there's no way there's two guys named Sam.
Yeah, that's right. And I actually read the book, The Psycho 2, and that was written by Robert Bloch as well. It's basically nothing to do with the movie version because they asked him to write a book, a sequel, and he wrote it, and they didn't like it. So they wrote the version. But the thing is that his book as well, Layla did marry Sam, and they did have... did they have a daughter? I can't remember, but because it's years ago since I've read it. But yeah, they were married even in his version, so I don't know if that's where they got it from.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but that maybe. But I always thought that was really funny. And then their daughter, obviously, is their daughter. And in Psycho 2, I always find it. What's her name? Mia Tilly or something like that.
It's Meg Tilly.
Meg Tilly, who was also in the Big Chill. But I always find it. She's Jennifer Tilly's older sister. It's so funny that those two float around in horror like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So what a family, guess, because she's definitely most known for Psycho 2. She's all right in the Big Chill, but nothing special.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Big Chill. But apparently she didn't get on too well with Anthony Perkins on the set of Psycho 2. So
actually, I don't ever really hear too many people, at least from what else, not too many people had anything really too negative to say about Anthony Perkins. Just that, he was kind of, he was very much to himself kind of guy.
I think they said he's very eccentric, but nobody knows what went on with him and Meg Tilly. They think that maybe they felt he was taking a bit of his, or she was taking a bit of his thunder. This was supposed to be his big comeback, and everybody was saying how great a job she was doing.
I mean, she's good in that movie. I thought she was really good in the movie. To be honest, I thought she was very good in the movie. Honestly, the acting in Psycho 2 is very good all around.
And you've got Robert Loggia in there, too.
I love Robert Loggia. Anytime he pops up with that freaking voice, man, I love Robert Loggia. Always have. He's even good on The Sopranos. He's always good.
He's brilliant in The Sopranos.
He's a piece of shit on The Sopranos, but he's great.
He is, yeah. I love that scene in The Sopranos where...
in the convertible?
No, it was is it Carmela says to you, Tony, you've got no real friends. They're all afraid of you, Tony. That's why they laugh at your stupid jokes. And he says, I'm running a business. I'm not trying to be popular. And then he thinks back about the joke he made at the poker game, and everybody's laughing, and the only one that's not laughing is Robert Loggia, and that's when the penny drops with him.
Yeah, and he's like,
I'm gonna have to get rid of him.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Robert. I thought he was gonna have a bigger part on the show, but the little part he does have, it's great. And then obviously in Big, he's awesome.
He's really good. I can't remember what's his name in The Sopranos again.
Oh my god, I can't. I just know that he was I can't remember either. He was just a crime guy who got out of prison, and he's basically just aged, and he's too old now. Essentially, he's outdated. Yeah. He's too much time in the clink.
Yeah. So his guys are on Paulie's estate.
Yeah.
They take it over and cut the grass. You remember Paulie pulls one of them out of a tree, he's cutting the tree, and he hits him with the shovel or something, or that's Satan too. He hits him with the shovel, but they're having to sit there with Tony. And Tony says, what happened? And Paulie says, he jumped out of the tree with a chainsaw and run at me.
Yeah, he was trying to get his nephew or something to get the business back. And he's like, you got to mow their lawn too. He's like, you come over, you mow my mother's lawn. And he's getting mad that he's not doing it. And he wants to charge them. He's like, I've had this set up this whole time. And you're coming in and screwing up my business.
It's brilliant show.
It's one of the best. And before we end this podcast, I just have to ask, is this your favorite Alfred Hitchcock film?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like John, talk about where's Jaws, Americans, where's Batman? Psycho is actually my second favorite film of all time.
Really?
So, oh yeah, 100%. Absolutely love Psycho. One of my favorites. Yeah, but that'd be my favorite Hitchcock movie.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that high, I think it's my second or my third. I still put Vertigo at number one. I absolutely love Vertigo.
Yeah, Vertigo's good.
Yeah, I know that it gets put on a lot of lists, like really high. It's like maybe sometimes even gets put as the number one film of all time. But I've always just really enjoyed seeing James Stewart's character in that movie. It's just fascinating to me because you never get to see him. Like it's very rare, but he's always playing like the clean cut white hat wearing guy. I mean, this is a very flawed individual, and Alfred Hitchcock just wrote that character perfect. And then the Technicolor stuff in that movie, just I eat that up. I think about the scene with the glowing green light outside the window of the hotel a lot. So, that movie, and then the ending obviously is fantastic.
Yeah, he becomes a very creepy character in that movie.
Yeah, he's a creeper, that's for sure, and they don't outright say it.
And as you said about that film as well, is Anthony Perkins homages that heavily in Psycho 3.
Exactly.
At the start in the bell tower, when the nun falls.
Yeah, which is I thought the same thing. I was like, that's clearly an Hitchcock homage at the very beginning of that movie with the nun. And the voices actually sound similar to like when the one nun sees the girl fall in Vertigo, and like her shock is very similar to the shock in Psycho 3.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. There's a lot more homages in Psycho 2. Psycho 2, they're like taking camera angles right out of Psycho. Then it's probably Psycho and Psycho or Rope. I really like Rope a lot.
Rope's really good. I would have to say Vertigo will probably be my second favorite, but I really like North by Northwest.
North by Northwest is great too. You seem like a spy movie.
Yeah, James Bond movie.
Yeah, it's pretty much a James Bond ripoff. Or well, actually, James Bond. That was before James Bond, wasn't it?
I know that they wanted Hitchcock to direct the first James Bond movie.
That would have made
sense. And he turned it down to direct Psycho, I think.
59. That would make sense, actually. So it was only a year apart.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm not saying you're wrong about the year. You looked it up. I'm saying...
Yeah, I was looking it up.
Obviously, you're right at that, because if you look at From Russia with Love, they took some of the inspiration from North by Northwest.
Oh, I could see that. I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
North by Northwest is a great movie, and that's one of the movies. I think that was the first movie I ever saw where they had Mount Rushmore, which is very fascinating to me. That's over. I don't know where that is in America, but I always find it funny that they shaped a mountain into the president's heads.
And you hear people saying that now, it's like, what's your Mount Rushmore of horror villains?
Yeah, like it just became its own thing. Yeah, who's your top four of essentially is what it is. And I get that. Yeah. I mean, everyone's got to pick, if you can narrow it down to four.
Another one I like is Rear Window.
Rear Window is fantastic. I love one of the very rare movies I always put that captured the heat of how hot it is outside. That's what I love about Rear Window. And it's just, again, Technicolor, so it looks beautiful. And I mean, so many movies have ripped that movie off of like someone spying on their neighbors and thinking that they're killing
the Burbs.
Yeah, exactly. The Burbs totally ripped it off. And what I find most fascinating about that is that whole movie is shot on a soundstage.
Look, I'm just thinking of Hitchcock movies now coming to mind. Like, have you seen Shadow of a Doubt?
Shadow of a Doubt, I've seen. That one's really good.
Really like that.
They did a remake of Rebecca a couple years ago, which I didn't see, but the original Rebecca is great.
That's one I haven't seen.
Oh, you would like Rebecca. Notorious? You ever seen Notorious?
No.
One that I'm embarrassed I haven't seen, and a lot of people always say it's one of his best, is Lifeboat. That's one I really want to see.
No, I haven't seen that one either.
No? See,
I got a box set of Hitchcock years ago on DVD. It was about 20 films on it. They're the ones I've seen. So some of the ones outside of that I haven't met much. What was the other one? And part of that box set is Frenzy. Have you seen Frenzy?
No, I haven't seen Frenzy. It's really hard with Hitchcock. He used to have like a movie come out every year. It's hard to see them all.
He's like 120 movies or something, so it's like, I have a box set of 20, and you think you've seen a lot.
Yeah, every year they come out with a new 4K collection with like 4 or 5 movies in there, and they like barely scratch the surface.
Yeah, exactly. But here, see if you like killing ones like Psycho, here like Psycho. I would advise to give Frenzy a watch. I actually think Frenzy is one of his most underrated movies. I think it's overlooked because it came out later in his life. It came out like in 1972. And I suppose maybe by that stage, movies were kind of moving on. You know, I think he was maybe still stuck in the past with with the way he was making his movies. You know what I mean? By 1973, we were getting movies like The Godfather and
yeah, and that's
things
right.
like that.
Right around the William
French Connection. And,
yes, that's what I was going to say. The French Connection in a year before the. So you got William Friedkin and his like documentary style films, and like getting completely just the code's gone. Like we could show whatever the hell we want now. Like characters that he was like floating that line of like characters in the moral gray area, but now it's like no, we could show their flaws, and we will know that these individuals are flawed people, and not everyone's perfect. Like we don't have to give you the happy ending anymore.
Yeah, it was coming into the era of the anti-hero.
Yes.
I think Frenzy was overlooked. I still think, as I'm saying, it's a forgotten Hitchcock, a gem, in my opinion. But I think the reason it was maybe just didn't do as well as it did at the time, or it's not as well held as in high regard, is because of that period of early 70s cinema where we are getting movies like, as I say, The French Connection and The Godfather and those type of movies, The Exorcist, and movies like that.
Yeah. Once we get away from we don't have to follow the rules of the 50s and 60s anymore. We can actually show you everything. One day I'd want to do The French Connection with you because I know you like William Friedkin as much as me. But I have a lot to say about like that movie. Just the year it came out is incredible. It's that 71. Like
yeah,
it's so ahead of its time.
Yeah, it's a brilliant film. I actually haven't seen it in a while, and I've been tempted to. I've got the DVD. I've been tempted to upgrade the Blu-ray. I watched The French Connection 2 as well many years ago. Not a patch on the original, but it's an interesting movie.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I watched actually one movie I think you said you really like a couple weeks ago, Sorcerer. Where after William Friedkin died, I wanted to watch Sorcerer.
Yes.
And that movie is so underrated too. That movie's shot beautiful at the very end of the movie. It's one of the most beautiful looking movies. And the fact that they start the movie off without any English for a while. And William Friedkin was great too. I'm getting very off topic. I'm sorry.
No, that's your thing. I like Sorcerer. I think Sorcerer is one of them type of movies, and I think it's the same with a lot of freaking movies. I'm going to contradict myself here. I don't think a movie you should have to watch a movie 10 times before you get it or before you like it. I don't like people that say, "Well, watch it again." Watch it again. But I just feel as if his movies, the more you watch them, the more invested you get in them.
Because he doesn't give you anything. William Friedkin doesn't tell you what's going on. All his movies start basically cold opens. Like, we're in a story, but we don't know what the hell's is going on. Like, whether it's in Cruising with the police cars and what the cops are doing, whether it's in Sorcerer seeing all four of these guys. But we don't know who these four guys are and what the hell is going on with them. We have no idea. We're just seeing this stuff play out. 3 of them aren't even in English.
That's right.
The Exorcist, they start out in, was it Iraq?
Iraq, yeah.
Yeah, so we don't know what's going on with Max von Sydow there. We have no idea. He doesn't even show back up till the third act of the movie. So
yeah,
like, that's just what. And the same thing with the French Connection. He doesn't give you the answers. Like, you got to figure it out for yourself. Yeah. So rewatches of his movies reward you.
Yeah, and that's what I love about them. They're just a slow burn. A lot of them. That's what I like about them.
Yeah,
they're not loud. They're not in your face. There's no kind of overacting. You know what I mean? They're just. I think a lot of the characters he has in his movies are very kind of down to earth and kind of relatable in a way that they just seem like regular people.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that comes from his documentary filmmaking style. Is that because that's what he did before he started making regular films? Is he was making, and I think that he just finds a way to make human beings seem real. Yes, we go to the movies to see, we want to see the big and the grand, but we also want to relate to these people and to see regular people, the anti-hero, like have flaws and see like, it makes you feel better about yourself. Like, okay, I can relate. I understand. I have that same problem. You have anything else you want to say on Psycho before we wrap this up?
I think I covered everything. I think it did. I mean, I could say it's another one of them ones I could sit and I'll think of something and then you talking and talking.
Oh, I know.
Like I say, it's one of my favorite movies, John. I mean, I've got documentaries on it. I've read a couple of books on it as well. So it's a fascinating movie. There's a handful of movies that I have watched in my life. When I watch them, they inspire me to love film, and maybe I would love to be able to make film or write a film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a handful of movies out there, and Psycho's definitely one of them. The craft in the movie is outstanding, and as I said, I think that Hitchcock was using the tools of the time to tell this story and still pushing boundaries. I think if he was around today and he made Psycho, it would be a completely different movie.
It would be a completely different movie, and I'm glad that this movie came out when it did because, I mean, yes, he would have made it a completely different film, but having it the way it is right now is still perfect, and it's a benchmark of horror. It took horror into a whole different level. It's the cultural importance of Psycho cannot be understated. It's still 63 years later. Like I think you said it at the beginning of this podcast, and you were 100% right. It's the Godfather of horror, and it really is.
In my opinion, there's very few perfect movies that have been made, and Psycho is one of them.
100%. 10 out of 10 perfect film. And if you guys haven't seen the sequels, well, you're doing yourself a disservice. There's a really nice Arrow video box set that both me and David have that you can actually check out all the sequels on 4K or Blu-ray. All of them great scans. Got a review here on the channel. But me and David will be back next time, and we're going to be doing Poltergeist. We can announce that here. That'll be our next film that we review together. And we will see you guys then. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends.